Welcome to the Unstuck and Happy podcast. We all get stuck, but how long you stay there is up to you. I'm your host, John Polish, founder of the Unstuck Happiness Conference. And this is the show where we interview people who've overcome tremendous adversity and have emerged as leaders. So if you need a little inspiration and hope in your day, get ready, because here comes another great Unstuck story. So we all have stories, and some are definitely more memorable than others. And I'm really excited to have with us today, Chrissy Oleson. Chrissy has a story that I want to say very few people have. However, a lot of people in this area have experienced it, but worldwide, hopefully you haven't experienced anything quite like this. Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you so much, John.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into kind of what happened.
Sure. My name is Chrissy Oleson. I live in Bakersfield. I'm married. My husband, Nathan Oleson. We're actually both attorneys by profession.
Okay. And we had a chance to meet about a month ago. It was an incredible experience, and I got to hear a little bit of your story. And I'm excited to hear the whole thing. So can you kind of walk us through what happened?
Sure. So on October 1st, 2017, my life was changed forever. I was one of the 851 people that was injured during the Las Vegas shooting. My husband and I were there. We both attended the Route 91 Harvest Festival every single year for our anniversary. And so this was our fourth year that we had attended. I liked to take pictures and be in the front row. So I would always drag my husband to the front row of the stage. We kind of had our place that we had every single year where we would be the front of the stage, right side of the stage closest to Mandalay Bay. And this particular year was kind of like any other. I got a lot of great pictures. I got to see the artists up close and personal, and I was excited when I got to get a high five or whatnot from them. But then everything changed. We heard what sounded like fireworks on my right side. I asked my husband what it was. And we kind of thought nothing of it because every single year there were two guys that like to dress up in overalls and have little horses, and they would always pull a lot of different shenanigans. And one year that we were at the Route 91 Harvest Festival, they had some poppers with confetti and fake dollar bills, and we just thought, oh, it's just those guys horsing around like they do every single year. But the popping increased, and I turned to my right side and I saw a woman, and her face was covered in blood and her eye was shot out. And as I turned, I felt a warm sensation on my left arm, and I later found out that I was grazed by a bullet. At that point, I knew that we were under attack. I didn't know where everything was coming from. I don't think I really connected that it was a shooting or what exactly was happening. But what I did was I took my husband and I threw him to the ground, and we laid on the ground. I was wearing flip-flops at the time, and looking back, I think that was kind of a dumb decision, but I had worn flip-flops every single year because it was Las Vegas. It was hot. I never had a problem. It was comfortable to stand in them. So as I threw my husband to the ground, I lost my right flip-flop, and people fell on top of me. I was kicked in the head with boots. My hair was pinned to the ground, and we laid on the ground for the duration of the shooting. We didn't have any shelter. There was nothing covering us. So we just laid on the ground and prayed. And I thought that I was going to meet Jesus that night, because there was nowhere to escape. So as we were laying on the ground praying, what I did was I was trying to time the gunfire, and the gunfire was so intense that it almost sounded like a sprinkler. It was just constant raining down. And so he would reload, and it just kind of kept happening in patterns. So my husband and I stood up and started to run, but as we were running, my husband fell, and I thought that he was shot at the time. It turned out he wasn't, but I didn't know at the time, and I lost my left flip-flop, and the grass was very wet, the artificial grass, because people were drinking, and there was a lot of different objects on there. And it was crazy that when we got up, we went from being shoulder to shoulder with 22,000 people to the place being almost completely empty, except for those that were wounded and had perished. We took off running. I looked for the closest place to find shelter, which was a Budweiser cart. There was a bartender behind the cart, and he pulled us back as soon as we ran underneath, and he looked around to see if it was okay for us to run. And so what he said was go, go, go as soon as he felt that it was safe. So we took off running. I'd say, I don't know if it was maybe close to a mile back to our hotel. We were staying at the Hooters Hotel. And when we reached close to the hotel, I realized that I was in a lot of pain. I could hardly stand. I couldn't really walk because I had rock and glass in my feet from running. So my husband picked me up and carried me down to the hotel. And as soon as we got in the hotel, people were running inside yelling that there was a sniper. And we had no idea where to go. We just wanted to go back to our room, just try to find any sort of place of safety. So we got inside of the elevator, and a lot of people had the same idea, just trying to escape. So when we got in the elevator, there was too many people in the elevator. So instead of going up, the elevator went down, and we were trapped in the elevator for, I'd say, maybe 30 minutes, and people were freaking out. There was a guy whose cheek was shot. He had a cloth covering it because he was bleeding so badly. I was pushed to the inside of the elevator because there was just so many people. People were screaming. We started praying, knocking on the elevator door, saying, "We're in here, let us out, help." It was really stuffy in there. There was a Hooters worker who told us, "You're safer in there," but we didn't feel safer. And eventually they lifted us out of the elevator. But when we got out of the elevator, people again started running toward us. So we ran into the Pizza Hut restaurant. And what I noticed when I went in the Pizza Hut restaurant is there was mirrors all along the side because it's very close to the pool area over there. And I had no idea if Las Vegas was just completely under attack, if there was one shooter, multiple shooters, just it was chaos everywhere, and people were screaming, people were panicking. So I saw that it was mirrored, and I took my husband and I pulled him into the back of the Pizza Hut next to the pizza ovens, and we sat there and we waited. And while we were waiting, there were a couple of Hooters workers that gave us wet washcloths to clean off our blood and our injuries, and they gave us some water, and we waited there until we were able to go back up to our room. When we got back to our room, I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't walk. I felt very confused, I guess in denial, because it just felt like such a dream. I didn't want to believe that it was real. So I was just soaking my feet. And as I was soaking my feet, I heard running down the hallway. And it turned out that it was the FBI. And what they were doing was running and knocking on the hotel doors and telling people to shelter in place. And so we did. We waited in our hotel room until we were able to leave. We didn't go to sleep that night because we couldn't, and we didn't want to be near any windows. So we sat on the side of the bed and watched TV, just trying to figure out what happened and when we could leave. And we kept calling the front desk. And finally at 7 a.m., they released us to go home. And we did. And we didn't go to any hospitals because the news stations kept saying how full the hospitals were. So as soon as we got back to Bakersfield, we went straight to the doctor. We didn't even unpack or do anything. And that's when I found out some of the extent of my injuries. At this point, I've had 4 surgeries. I had both ankles reconstructed. I have a screw in each ankle. I have artificial ligaments because they were torn when I was running. And I had 2 knee surgeries. And I'm still to this day going to physical therapy. And obviously I've gone through a lot of trauma counseling as well. So it's been quite an experience.
Wow. That's very powerful. And just to be clear, Nathan was not injured at all?
He had scraped knees, and, thank God he wasn't shot, but he was okay for the most part.
So what was take us through the emotional journey from, you'd mentioned everybody was kind of screaming and crying and that. How are you guys?
We're okay. I mean, I know a lot of people say whenever you go through some sort of trauma or tragedy to take it day by day, but I can't really do day by day. I just try to do hour by hour. And what we've done is just through counseling and, some of the techniques that you taught us as well, is just learn from them and how to move forward. It was very difficult for us just to live, I guess you could say, I don't want to call it a normal life because I don't think it'll ever be normal, but to just somehow get back into society. So we constantly did things to challenge ourselves.
What was the hardest thing for you afterwards?
I think there was a lot of things that were very difficult for us. Going out into crowds was very difficult. So what we did the weekend after we got back was we went to the mall because we didn't want this to impact the rest of our life and essentially ruin us. So we just kept doing different things. We went to Disneyland because of the crowds and because of the fireworks. My favorite holiday is actually the 4th of July. So that was very difficult. It's still very difficult, but I never wanted that to stop me from living my life.
So you were worried about those emotions coming back up, being startled by the fireworks or the dealing with the crowds?
I think that those emotions will always come up in some fashion or another, and it really depends on the day. So I've kind of, I guess, found different strategies. Like, for example, the first time we went to Disneyland, I was underneath I had a covering over my head because I just didn't feel safe being out and exposed with the fireworks and the noise, because it certainly mimics gunfire.
Right. And how has things been as far as, like, you and Nathan went there to celebrate? Clearly did not end in the celebration you were hoping for. how has the processing been? Like, as far as, have you found that you guys have come together? Has it been challenging? Because everybody processes things differently. So being that you both had the same experience, how have you guys navigated that?
And the thing about having the same experience, it's interesting because everybody handles things differently. And I think because of my injuries, it's been a little bit more challenging for me because I have a lot of pain. And each time I have pain, it's almost like a reminder of what happened. But I'm glad that I have Nathan because we've both relied on each other and we can both understand this experience. It would be difficult if we hadn't both gone through it because I don't think we would understand each other as much. It's difficult to understand such an experience if you've never gone through it. And, what we've done is we talk about our feelings and we certainly pray a lot.
Was that part of your normal routine before this? I mean, did you guys pray a lot before?
Yes. Okay. But more so now.
Yeah. What I found, especially doing the event that we met at the Moving Beyond retreat, was how many people that were there that night were there to either celebrate something or to help them get over something. And I think we see the news and we see the numbers and they're just statistics, but we don't think about the stories behind each and every one of those people that were there. So I appreciate you being willing to share your story with us. How is your life different now?
It's more difficult. I think that now I get overwhelmed and frustrated a lot more than I used to because this experience has changed my life completely. But at the same time, I feel like it's made me stronger because it's made me realize that I can handle absolutely anything that this world throws at me. And it certainly increased my reliance on God as well.
Nice. Are you okay in crowds now?
I don't know if I'll ever be okay in crowds, but before this, we love to go to concerts. We love to go to county fairs, just going out traveling and doing all of that stuff. And we try to do that, but it's definitely not the same because I'm constantly looking around and wondering if something like this will happen again. And whenever I go outside, even if it's just to go to the mailbox, I think about what footwear I'm wearing because you just never know what's going to happen.
Right. Wow. So, why did you agree to want to do a podcast? Like what's your message right now?
Well, I just want people to realize that they're not alone. And I know that I may have gone through one of the worst mass shootings in history, but we all have some sort of trauma or tragedy that we need to work through. And I just don't want other people to feel like things are difficult and they're alone in their feelings because you're never alone. And I understand that people may feel that way, but it's not true.
Right. Yeah. I always say resilience is easy. When our backs are against the wall, we respond. Just like that night, you mentioned throwing Nathan to the ground. Nathan is not a small guy. It's not like you just, you grabbed him and you responded in a moment. You guys made it through that night as best as could be expected. The hard part is afterwards when you have to try to put your life back, get your life back to some semblance of normalcy. And that's where the challenging part comes. I think that when something traumatic happens like this, it kind of brings to light a lot of other things that are going on in our lives. And so do you have any experiences from this that maybe this experience helped to bring a resolution to or bring light to?
Well, this experience has made me realize the importance of, I guess, getting your feelings out, because that night when we were back at our hotel, we actually wrote down what happened to us because we didn't want to keep it all inside. It was almost like vomiting out the experience. Like what had happened to us was almost like food poisoning, and just getting that out of our system. So it really made me realize the importance of, helping others and writing things out, because I think that the most healing aspect of all of this has been to help others work through their experiences as well.
I agree with both of those statements. One is writing things out helps you process, and it becomes therapeutic for sure. And then sharing your story to help others, obviously, there's healing in that, both to hear someone's story and to be able to share yours. So what other things have you done to help yourself through this time?
A lot of counseling, and just we've turned to support groups as well. There's a Facebook page that has Route 91 survivors, where we can reach out and talk to others about our experience, as well as attending different events, like when we met you in Las Vegas, going to different things where we feel that we can use that to not only help ourselves, but help others.
And I saw you posted about this afterwards, that you actually went back and retraced your steps.
Correct. We had been to Las Vegas several times since that night, because we had gone to Las Vegas every single year, and we didn't want it to ruin that experience and prevent us from doing what we wanted to do. Up until your event, we weren't able to go and retrace our steps, but with the tools that you showed us, we were able to go and actually see where we were and walk through it, walk back to the Hooters and go to the elevator. And it was difficult, but I think it was necessary.
First of all, I appreciate that. I can't even begin to tell you how much that event has helped me and meant to me. But just for the sake of anyone listening, what was it specifically that you got out of it that made you think it was okay to go do that? Like, what was your takeaway from the event that helped you the most, I guess?
I think just realizing that what we went through kind of, it sucked, obviously, but just that it's okay that things suck sometimes, but we have to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked a lot that weekend about the fact that when something happens to you, it really doesn't, you can't isolate the event. It just becomes part of who you are. And so it's not like you can just take it and remove it. You just have to learn how to deal with it in a different way. And I really appreciate you guys being there and I can't even say how that event was. It was challenging for me. The first day it was silent, and I started questioning, why are we doing this? Can I even, cause it's such a heavy topic. And what's amazing is everyone in the room had an incredible story. And
absolutely.
Eventually people started sharing, and I got to hear what some of the people were going through. And again, it's amazing how many people, Tracy did a podcast interview with us as well. And she went to the concert every year for her anniversary also. And just knowing that people were there to either celebrate, and some of them were there to, help them get over some other stuff. What else are you doing now to help yourself or to help others besides therapy?
I guess right now, I mean, it's difficult with the way things are currently with the world. But what I was doing before was doing presentations on trauma, trying to help people. I previously was an education law attorney, and so I trained school administrators in that aspect, and just I think a lot of what I've done is just trying to help others, because I think that has been the thing that has helped me the most.
That's fascinating. Who did you present these to?
It was special education directors and school administrators, superintendents.
Interesting. My previous life, I was actually a special education teacher. So, yeah. What did you teach them about trauma?
Just different things to look for. Like if a kid, for example, is basically going from straight A's to getting F's, to approach the child and look for things that are out of the ordinary and try to be more understanding.
So what advice do you have for people now, especially during these times when some people are feeling stuck, because we are all literally stuck in our homes at the moment, the coronavirus issues? What advice do you have for people?
I would just say to realize that things are temporary and that things will get better, but it's going to take work. You can't just expect things to get better on their own. There's a lot of things that need to be done, whether it's constantly challenging yourself by going to different places or talking to different people. It's always a difficult process to get to that point, but just constantly working through issues and not just sitting back and expecting things to change on their own.
Absolutely. Do you plan on continuing the trauma work?
Probably. We'll see. I've talked to some counselors in training too, but we'll see how things go.
And what about Nathan? Is he doing anything with what he's been through?
He went with me to talk to the counselors in training too. So sometimes he'll show up at the events as well.
Nice. Is there any specific group that you have a passion for helping?
It's kind of interesting. I'm really interested in helping students because I worked in education law, and I'm also interested in helping veterans because in my prior life, I was a public defender, and I saw a lot of veterans in the system because of mistakes that they made due to PTSD. And I will never understand what they went through, but this Las Vegas incident has definitely given me a better perspective. And it's my hope that I can use what I've learned through Las Vegas and the different strategies from going to different events, through counseling, to help other people that are facing traumatic situations and working through their issues.
Yeah, PTSD is a fascinating thing because it's literally something will happen that will take you right back to the moment of your tragedy. And a lot of us don't realize what that actually does, but what it does is I just had a podcast earlier. We had this conversation, but we actually hold on to our emotions and we use them later as experience filters. So when, for example, you hear the fireworks, those fireworks may remind you of the gunshot, which everyone else was watching fireworks. It's, ooh, wow, look at that. But when you hear it, I'm not saying you personally, but somebody suffering from PTSD hears that and reminds them of gunfire, it automatically takes you right back into that moment when you were surrounded by gunfire and you start having those same emotions that you had before. And so that fight or flight kicks in and, so we write it off sometimes as, okay, well, it's just a disorder. It is, but it also takes you into a moment where you really don't have control over your emotions at all. And so it's learning how to process that and sometimes even replace that memory so that that's not the first thing that comes back. So for you to be able to go back and retrace your steps was amazing because a lot of times being there will really bring back exactly what happened in that moment. That's one of the reasons why when we had that retreat, I had to make sure we didn't do it on the Strip because the Strip could be one of those emotional catalysts for somebody else.
For sure.
Is there anything else that has happened along the way that you found significant that you'd like to share?
I don't think so.
And are you going to continue to go to concerts in the future, or?
I will, but it's definitely not the same, because we used to go to concerts multiple times a month. And I mean, I would say we've maybe been to like 4, 5 since 2017. So it's definitely not the same. And I have no desire to sit or stand near the front. When we've gone to concerts, it's typically by a wall, or if there's an awning or something over us. It's a very different experience now.
Right. That's totally understandable. What do you have that you're looking forward to the most?
Right now, I mean, I think I'm looking forward to things going back to normal out of the coronavirus. Because
going outside, yes.
Going outside, being able to talk to people outside of, a computer. I mean, it's great that we have these computers, but, just having that personal connection with people.
For sure. Do you feel like you're in a better place now? Would you say you're happier now?
I'd say it depends on the day.
Okay. But you're working. I mean, what you went through was so traumatic, and it's only been a couple of years, and
Correct.
It takes a while. But I think you're doing all the right things. And most importantly, you're taking action to help yourself and others. And I think by helping others, it'll accelerate your healing process as well. It's never going to go away. It will always be there with you. Glad that you have Nathan, that you guys have experienced that together and that you can lean on each other. And I think that's going to be critical in the future. Any final words you would like to leave us with? Any piece of advice you'd like to tell people?
Yes. I mean, I'd just like to say, don't give up and don't lose hope, because you're not alone.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you and the experiences that you've had, being willing to come and be vulnerable with us and to share. I know it's not easy to go back into those moments, but thank you. And I wish you the best, and thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you again next week.
Thank you.
Make sure you head over to unstuckandhappy.com, where you'll find the video version of all of our podcasts, as well as information about upcoming Unstuck Happiness conferences and moving beyond personal development retreats. Those are amazing. Make sure you join us again next week for another great Unstuck story. And in the meantime, keep living unstuck and happy.